Welcome to The Growth Equation. This isn't your typical business podcast. We're keeping it real about the challenges of scaling up, period. I'm Tristan Wright and I've been there. I've built and scaled my own business. I've sold it. I've learned a ton along the way. Now I'm bringing you the no BS stories of founders who are in the trenches right now, navigating that messy middle. We're talking advertising, marketing, design, creative, branding, the whole 9 yards. Doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur or running a team of 100. Everyone's got a secret sauce. That thing that makes them different, better. We're going to uncover it. So grab a coffee and let's get real. This morning we're talking to Susan, the founder of Tenfold. Susan, can you tell us a bit about your business and how you got into it?
Sure. So I started off, I got my master's in industrial organizational psychology from the University of Tulsa at 20 years old. And I was hell on heels.
You got your master's at 20?
Yes. And then it's like, so what are you going to do? And the first interview I had, I was flown out. First time I'd ever been on an airplane. This was eons ago, to Conoco. And they introduced me to their advanced management project or program. And people that they hire in that program spend a little bit of time in every division, and then they accelerate them into leadership. And so I thought, well, this sounds kind of cool, until the bit about checking the oil fields and wearing waiter boots and living in tiny little towns. I came from a tiny little town in Kansas. I had my share of waiter boots and all kinds of things. Very cold climate sometimes with the snow. And so I did not have that in mind. I had myself pictured, I wasn't sure where I was working, but I had myself pictured with a briefcase and a beautiful suit. And it didn't sound like what Conoco was asking or offering. So I was like, oh no. So I had been interning for a computer company called Telex at the time, soon after it became Memorex Telex. And I had worked in a special group there. And marketing came knocking on my door and said, didn't you do a lot of research? And I said, in your education? And I said, yeah. And I said, great. You're in charge of the analysts. Come over here. And so that's how I got into marketing. It was literally, this is back in the 80s where, sales ruled the world, sales and engineering. And, marketing people were just along for the ride for a large part of it. So I started my work in industry analyst relations and then expanded that over the 7 years that I was with that combined $2 billion, 2,000 person conglomerate to take over media relations as well. So back then there was no social media or real digital. I didn't do advertising though. So that was what I did.
That's that's crazy. I'm still stuck on the fact that you had your advanced masters at 20. Most people, if they're at uni or college, are still at college kind of thing. So not at that level. So,
well, my parents were a little older and older parents, and I could see there's an old country song called Lubbock in my rearview mirror. In my case, it was Newton, Kansas in my rearview mirror. So I wanted the heck out of a small little town and wanted to get on with big city life, or so I thought. And so the combined company took me to Dallas, where I worked out of Dallas, which I absolutely loved. And then, of course, as things go, I met a guy and that also worked for this company and moved to California and took a new job. So we wouldn't be working in the same company. So I went to work for Sybase. So I had a couple of really formidable, large company experiences. That was just after Sybase went public. It was doing extremely well. It announced System 10. The thing about both those companies is they were doing something that I hadn't necessarily trained for, which was deep tech, infrastructure technology. And so one was on the hardware side and one was on the software side, but it set me up perfectly ultimately to have my own agency.
Yeah. So, and the study that you did, I imagine, applies perfectly to the agency as well, even though it's not marketing, even though it's not PR, any of that sort of stuff. It's still all people related.
Well, I think you make a great point. I think some of the best leaders have a high EQ. And I think this emotional quotient concept that I know HBR has written about quite a bit. There are a lot of people that focus on EQ. It does play a large role in my ability to get things done, relate to clients, retain people, market to some extent. There's just a lot there.
Yeah. So when did you, or how did you get into running your own business or running your own agency?
So funny story. I after I moved to California, got married, I had a child and things were going great. And a small agency came knocking on my door and recruited me out of Sybase. And I really didn't have a great reason to leave Sybase, but there were two things that they offered. One was an elevated title. And at that time, with a growing family, that was important to me. So they offered me a director title. And two, it was within 10 minutes of my home. And I was doing an hour and a half commute each way and racing to pick up a kid at a daycare. And so those were the two things that kind of swung me over. But as most people sort of make the mistake in their in their 20s, late 20s even, um, you really have to check out where you're going to go work first. This was a very small
Mhm.
agency, and I wound up having Irish twins. So my sons are 13 months apart. So I was pregnant soon after, uh, or I realized I was pregnant soon after I started there. And it was about 3 months in, and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant again. And things have been going well. And I let the agency owner know, and that was not okay. And so we parted ways, is the way I'll say that. And
Mhm.
I thought, well, I just don't believe in, I don't belong in agency life. Maybe I'm not cut out for small companies and I can go back to a large one. So I had a couple things going, even an opportunity with IBM, sort of in the works, and thought, well, maybe I'll do it now, or maybe I'll do it after I have the baby. And it's funny because the clients of the agency, the small agency I worked for, found me through the yellow pages because this is before cell phones. And said, "Where did you go? What happened? The owner isn't talking about it. We needed to find you. You're the reason we ultimately stayed with this agency. We want to work with you." So I think she had like 5 or 6 clients, and two of them um, said, "We want to hire you." And I said, "I can't steal business. This is part of the agreement that I have with her now." And they said, "You're not stealing. We're firing her and coming to you." So I started my agency based on clients from the old agency. And before I had the baby, I had 5 clients. It just word travels fast. There were people leaving Sybase at the same time. I'd had a great relationship with a bunch of people at Sybase. They were wanting to hire me in. And all of a sudden, my agency was exploding. And here I am. Now I'm like 6, 7 months pregnant. And I'm finding myself like, oh my gosh. So I was thinking,
How do I service everyone? And
yeah, yeah. And, yeah, I was 29 years old. So, it was pretty insane. So, yeah, it was a big change really quickly. And, I proceeded to have my second son and then wound up having 2 more children after that. And, then went through kind of a wild time. I wound up getting kind of a contentious divorce. And not long after, my mother, who had stage 4 colon cancer, came to live with me. So it was a wild time to be running a business, all these children, all these things going on. When she first came, I
Mhm.
didn't she didn't know either that she had colon cancer, but we found out shortly after. So anyway, it was a pretty wild
Yeah,
beginning.
it's enough looking after 4 children, then 4 children going through a divorce, then running a business on top of that, and then having an ill mother, uh, keeping that all together, um, that must that mustn't have been the easiest time for you during that period.
I think I
So
look a lot younger now, even 30 years older than I did then. I was under so much stress. I didn't even have time to think about the stress. I used to wear like an eye patch to keep my eyes from like they would literally start like tweaking. And I was like, oh my gosh, but I don't have time to slow down or stop or do all the things the doctor would probably tell you. So I just wore an eye patch. Thank God there were no Zoom calls back then.
okay, zoom forward to today. Where is the business today? So I'm assuming it's the
Yeah. So
same business, but it's been through multiple iterations or variations.
yeah, so that first year, I think I was pretty thrilled with. I think I made like 275,000 that first year, which was substantially more than I made at the other agency or even at Sybase or Memorex Telex. So I was thrilled. and feeling like, yeah, maybe I can make a go of this. And the business just continued to climb. Now, it's fair to say that I started the business March 1st, 1995. And we were leading up to what everyone would then know as a dot-com boom. Now, I didn't work with dot-coms. I've always been focused on infrastructure technology because it's what I know. Rising tides lift all boats. And so for me, I was very fortunate in that the industry in general was just taking off because dot-coms needed infrastructure and there was just a lot of sales being made. Of course, there was a correction. That was back in 1999, 2000, and I got to learn all about that. Wasn't as impacted by that because I was still pretty small and I was still just starting to reach out to contacts and figure out people. But I was so fortunate because all of my clients, it was the old L'Oreal commercial. They told two friends and they told two friends and they told two friends. And soon I was introduced to venture capitalists. And at first, funny enough, I didn't know that I needed to know them or that they could be useful or helpful. But ultimately, a couple of them invited me into their office and wanted to talk about my work with their portfolio companies and then began recommending me pretty liberally throughout their portfolio. And so I grew through, and that was at a time when capitalists had a lot of sway. They still do sit on boards, but they tend
Mm.
to be a bit more founder friendly now. But back then they would suggest heavily if they wanted somebody to hire a consultant or a vendor. And so I had the good fortune of being the vendor a lot of them recommended.
Yeah.
So we grew pretty quickly, and it was it was wild. I still can't believe it. It was just kind of a great time. 2007 hit. There was a little bit of a slowdown in the industry.
How big did it get to during that period? How big was the business?
I grew to like $3 million seemingly very quickly. And
And how many people
I'm
did you
not to look
have?
back at my financials because I don't trust my memory. That was quite a while ago. But then I realized, and then we kind of got stuck. And I think a lot of small businesses do plateau. And gosh, I was there, and maybe it was 4 years, and I was maybe 5, I don't know. 3, 4 years. It seems like in my mind, that's where I was at 3 million. And I met this woman who was a coach for Women's Presidents Organization, which is large national organization. And then they have chapters in cities or regions of states. And a lot of women get together, they talk about their businesses, they help each other out. It's a lot of peer advisory. Sometimes there's speakers. And our women and our person, Ann Blackburn, was particularly good. She had a perfect leadership. She had a doctorate in leadership, etc. So she was really great and really became a personal friend of mine also. And so that group was really instrumental for 10 years in helping me grow my business. And then I saw that I was accelerating beyond that group, which happens. And that's my first tip. The first group you join, if you accelerate and do well, you may need to change. To
There's different stages of business, and it sounds like you before you joined that group, you were at your plateau or glass ceiling, and the business couldn't grow past you, and you needed external support or guidance or to learn from others. And
right.
that's what this group provided. And you grew, and then you grew to the ceiling with that group.
And the best and worst thing about me is I'm very impatient, Tristan. I'm not a patient person. So I think that I realized I was kind of then stuck at like 5 or 6 million. And I couldn't figure out, like, why am I so stuck? What's going on? It's another common plateau. And I think that along with these plateaus, it also calculates to the number of people that work for you in the services business like mine.
Well,
And so it's like, oh, now we're at this many people. And that, I needed to put in some infrastructure that I wasn't seeing or understanding, or I needed to change some key people out and of my leadership team. And I needed to do some different things. And so I moved to a different group called Vistage, and I started working with a coach there. And then ultimately, as I was kind of seeing myself growing beyond what the group was doing, I moved to a different group that was a little bit larger and closer to my home. So that took me, quite a ways. So I think a lot of the peer advisory, hearing other professional services, not even necessarily in marketing, and a lot of the coaches there, and a lot of the readings and training and seminars and things that were recommended. I also worked with a woman named Rayona Sharpnick, and she founded the Institute for Women's Leadership. And that was very instrumental in my growth. So I just learned so much over this period of time, and it really set me up well to scale.
Surrounding yourself with people that are one step ahead of you that you can learn from, and you can idolize and go to their next level, and then being cognizant enough to realize that once you're at that level, you need to move on to the next level rather than stay comfortable in that group.
Right. Yeah. That's one of them. And I didn't make those moves fast enough looking back. But I made the moves. So here we are.
That's awesome. So, and where is it today? Have you stayed at that level, or are you?
So no, we're bumping up against 9 million this year. We're doing well, and yeah, we're still the same focus. I went through raising kids as a single parent for a while. I did eventually remarry with my real husband, as I love to call him, who we're very happy to today. My mother did eventually pass from stage 4 colon cancer. Kids grew up, got them through college, and now we're empty nesters. So we have our border collie mixes, Willie Nelson and Dolly Parton, and I have 2 quarter horses. So the border collie mixes and the 2 horses keep me really busy. And so I'm kind of living my best life, and I love my work. I continue to love my work.
How many people have you got in the business now?
So we're in the mid 30s, maybe pushing 40. It's not about people anymore, especially with AI. And we employed AI early, and we employed AI professionally. So it wasn't the vibe coding that you hear about, like just create something that, no, we actually hired professional consultants to make things easier. And we were lucky enough to do that almost 4 years ago and start that process. So we've been taking advantage of that for routine work that people don't really like doing. And so that's been great. So, but we need less people because of that, ultimately.
One of my clients, he's the one that's actually just around the corner from you. That's exactly what his business does. So it's not doing the vibe coding way, but going in and looking at your bottlenecks in your business and where the repetitive work that humans are doing that can be done by AI, and you have the stopgap at the end, the humans approving everything, of course. But it allows you to be 3 times more efficient than you would be without AI.
And but you have to be careful about that, because I'll tell you a story. Twice a year, we would hire 6 interns with the idea that not all of them would make it, not all of them would like it. Some of them wouldn't make the grade, didn't have the capacity. But knowing that we'd want to hire at least a couple of them, 2 or 3 of them, so that they could be promoted into the other jobs, because you're looking for a way to keep and retain people and promote them from within.
And this is where the danger is.
And so that's where the danger is. That's exactly what I was going to say. So we've cut way back in the interns we hire, and finding ourselves lacking the staff now to move into those next levels. And so we're kind of rethinking, how can we rework an internship where there's mutual value, but we have people to promote. So yeah, we continue to learn and, of course, make mistakes, which are the best teachers.
Yeah. It's a real issue, not just in your industry, but other industries, that AI is effectively replacing the interns or the first years or second years or third years. So what companies are going to develop them?
I would slightly change that based on the research we completed. And AI isn't really replacing current headcount to a large extent, at least in marketing, or so the 400 folks that Sapio talked to on our behalf say. What they are saying, though, is they may not hire new people or hire additional people unless the demand creates it. So in marketing, everybody's been saying for a long time, well, AI can write everything. You're not going to need your writers. You're not going to need your content department. And that is quite opposite from the truth. Content departments are actually growing. It's either your department or your agency use, because the demand and the volume of content people are asking for has just increased exponentially. And you cannot do content without a human in the loop. People are failing in a big way, and they're losing, they might have had great SEO rankings, but that is not the way geo AEO works. So the thing is that it's not so easy. So the content team is not losing their jobs as people once predicted, is what we found just recently.
Yeah. It's modifying or remolding the way work is done. So, yeah. So 30 people now. Are you at the point where you can circa? Are you at the point where you can pick and choose when you work, or when were you at the point that you could pick and choose when you work?
I'm looking for that day. After 31 years, I'm still looking for the when can I pick and choose. Kind of just kidding. It took, first of all, when people delegate, there's a lot more than just, oh, just trust them, they'll be fine.
Mm.
You know,
There's
first,
delegation versus abdication.
yeah, it's choosing the right people that you trust.
Mm.
And if you don't think you can leave, then you may not trust who is next in line. And it's a very serious conversation with yourself. Um, I've got people that I feel like I can leave now. And also, it's the breadth of people. I was very slow to add infrastructure people, but we have a development manager, an IT development manager in house, because we develop so much from a custom app for ourselves and for our clients, their benefit, that we needed DevOps manager. So they work with outside organizations, but it's still very critical. That was not, who do you give that to? That the other thing is recruiters. You're not just going to put an ad on Indeed and get a bunch of qualified folks. So having an in-house recruiter. There are times when we need 3 positions stat within, all at once. And so that person is not only recruiting for you, but possibly working with an agency to recruit one of the 3 positions, because they're all so urgent. So yeah, it's a lot of infrastructure. We also have a marketing assistant that does a lot of our visuals and things like that. And that was critical. Gosh, I mean, it's just crazy, all the things. We have a director of finance. There's all kinds of things that you may need. I always used to caution against getting too many high level titles before your business can afford it. But I think I waited too long to add infrastructure, because I was doing a lot sort of badly, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And
You were
now
broad and you weren't the subject matter expert in some of those areas.
100%. And even now, watching leadership run their groups, like there's a person running digital, there's a person running AI, big data, and cloud SaaS companies, things like that, enterprise software. And there's a person running security and professional services clients. Those people are all way better. And, than I could have been and all that stuff. So now I can leave. It's really wonderful.
You don't want to replace yourself with someone exactly the same as you. You want to replace yourself with a subject matter expert in a certain area that is better than you.
100%. And that takes something to think about. It took a while to think about it, took a while to figure out which ones were most important. Of course, salary costs are huge in California in particular. Well, anywhere really in the United States, but especially in California. So you just go, oh gosh, I hope I can afford them. And you don't realize how much time you're going to get back.
Yeah, that's it. Now, 2 things we've missed. We've talked about the growth of your business, but we haven't actually talked about the offer and how it's changed over the years.
Ah,
So we've sort of picked up on it, but I'm
yeah.
sure your offer is not exactly the same as it was day 1 to now. Mm.
One hot tip is, don't name your company after your own last name. That's a bad idea. Um, and I sadly made that mistake, and it had devastating effects on 2 levels. One is the last name was Trainer, so that means a lot of different things to people. They thought I was a fit trainer, they thought I was a dog trainer, they thought I was all kinds of trainers. So that was terrible. And then I divorced that husband. So that was awkward. And so,
How
uh,
quickly did you change your business name after that?
not as fast as I should have. Um, it started off though, just to your point of we primarily did public relations, although I uniquely had industry analyst relations because of the research aspect I talked to you about before. I had worked with industry analysts, so we offered industry analyst relations as well as public relations. So that's how we started. And content wasn't really a separate thing back then. It was
Mm,
just, well, of course you're going to need content for these things, so get after it. So then, so we were literally called Trainer PR. And then when things began to break out and look like separate services, we became Trainer Communications. And I hired this wonderful person from that a VP that I love to this day, Fran Lowe, who I said, I really want to change this name. I don't want it to be about me. I'm not even married to this guy anymore. I mean, good Lord. And we had a good giggle about it. And then we said, well, let's do it. Let's figure it out. So we went through the process, and she actually, we put a big contest out there for our staff and our clients and anybody that wanted to play. But she was the one that came up with the name Tenfold.
that's a good PR thing, because it's letting your staff, letting your clients, everyone know that you're changing your name before you actually do it. So
Yeah, we're very inclusive about stuff.
yeah,
So, yeah, that worked out really well. And the name has had a lot of advantages. First of all, starts with a one. So you're always at the head of the alphabet. So
yeah, that's awesome. So we've heard about most of the good things. I'm sure there's been times that you've been up late at night, all night,
mm,
um, client issues, staff issues, financial issues, time to throw in the towel issues. Um, hopefully not that one. What sort of issues, and like where were you? What stages of the business, and what triggered those concerns?
I'll say that my hot tip, so framed in the positive, the best thing you can do for yourself as a business owner is to immediately go out and find the metrics that your industry or similar companies use to run their businesses, because it turns out they're out there. So they'll literally tell you, and I did my first Vistage play, the leader of that, Sherry Benjamin, said, you got to read this book. And she gave me this book that was written literally, the first edition was 1972. And so much of it still applied. But it was like, what percentage of the revenue that I earn should I spend on people? What percentage should I spend on expenses? What percentage of should I expect for profit? I mean, just some basic stuff like business logic and what you can afford to do. I mean, that governs so much in terms of what you take deals for, um, in terms of revenue. And so that really, really helped a lot. Then it turns out there are metrics out there for what you should pay specific roles. And you shouldn't just make it up and or pay everybody the same or give everybody the same title. I mean, there's so many mistakes you can make, and I'm sort of
There's
allergic to a few.
When I
Um,
get clients on, there's been times where I've almost fallen off my chair when they've told me how much they're paying some of their staff. Sometimes they're paying them 20% under, sometimes they're paying them 30% over market rate. And I'm like, how did you come up with those numbers?
and it turns out that you can get that information.
Yeah.
There's one company I use, and I'll just shout them out now, Labor IQ. They're fantastic. They have a lot of data about pay and salaries and ranges and things. And that changed life dramatically. But I think it all kind of falls into this idea of get the metrics. And um, that that will help you the most. One big thing that personally happened to me, that it's nothing I did wrong, but discovered I had stage 3B breast cancer. And while I was running my business, and that was like, that's a whole nother wrinkle. And newly married, I was, a year in. My youngest child was 8. So they range from 8 to like 16, and there are 4 of them. So there was a lot of complexity with that and how I wanted to treat that. And one of the things I wish I had done was I wish I had a benchmarked and really been clear about what each role in my company needed to do, because I had become mamacita. I was taking care of everyone, even my top leaders at that time. And they weren't taking care of me. So add the complexity of a double breast mastectomy, 9 months of chemo and just all kind reconstruction and all kinds of surgeries and things. That's a grueling schedule in and of itself, but add that to, and you make most of the decisions. You don't have people that are,
When do you sleep? Like,
yeah,
how do you look after yourself kind of thing?
that was a rough
Mm,
one, no doubt. I mean, I think there's that old saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger."
mm,
Yeah. So I think that's part of it. But I think a lot of business owners, I had one friend say, you drive at 90 miles an hour, kind of figuratively and literally. And when you hit a speed bump, the wheels kind of come off. So maybe there's an easier way. So we talked a lot about, like I just started thinking about who and what I really needed. And a lot of that is, small business owners, a lot of folks that start their business, at least this applied to me, and maybe everybody else is way more sophisticated, but I was just so darn grateful that people wanted to come work for me because I only had a small business. Like, you trust me? That's awesome. Thank you. And so I let that overtake, but what do I need back from you? And I think, again, the metrics of what people should be doing based on their role, their salary, what they're doing, um, is really, really important. And I didn't hold those lines very carefully for a very long time.
yeah, there was no, I guess, formal position descriptions or KPIs or expectations of the staff member and relationship
Yes.
expectations.
Very loose. And lots of I would have said, oh yes, we have performance expectations, and yes, we have KPIs, but they were very loose. And I was very, very liberal about the way I applied those standards. So I think there's something to, you've got to protect everybody in the business, not just the person you're coddling.
Mm, yep. And to put those rules in place, you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting the others, and you're setting. And if you have to let someone go because they're not hitting those expectations, it actually helps make the business stronger as well.
I I was I'm loyal to a fault. I actually had several clients tell me about one individual that worked for me. That's not a good representation of your firm. If you told me that he would be the leader for me, I would not sign up with you. And still it took me several years to make that change.
There's a saying, you hire slow and you fire fast. And often people do it the exact opposite way.
100, because we all hate the idea of interviewing. Are we going to get tricked? Are we going to? But then there's a tip there.
Mm,
Get a great recruiter that's really systematic, and or a recruiting firm. One of the best
mm,
recruiting firms I've worked with is ECA, and they recruit people, and they have 3 levels of interviews before the candidates ever get to you. So they're not just throwing at you every Tom, Dick, and Harry, pardon the phrase, but
mm,
giving you people that match all your criteria. And it's such a relief. You're not wading through and just ready to hire anybody at some point.
mm. And that's why recruitment firms cost 10, 20, 30,000, whatever it is, percentage of their salary, but you're going to get a very high quality candidate. There's a lot of cowboys as well. So yeah. But it all comes back to what you said you didn't do early enough. Like, everything was centered around you and not letting go and bring in subject matter experts.
Yeah. And so each group I joined, the people got smarter and bigger and more talented, and the advisors got more sophisticated and had more experiences running large companies. And yeah, I tend to benefit greatly. My last Vistage leader, Scott Reeves, was just an ace. I mean, really gave me and found opportunity for me and showed me new ways and saw my weaknesses and really helped me stop the gaps. So I think that's fantastic. Have a personal board of advisors, have a group leader, have a coach, do something. The world is bigger than you know. Even if it's just for great podcast recommendations, book recommendations.
Yeah. Just thinking, how has your role progressed from being a doer to a manager to a leader to a coach? Because I imagine you've progressed along that journey.
Yeah. It took me a while to get out of working in the business to working on the business. And now 97% of my time is spent on the business. So I've innovated on our Metrics Matter platform that is largely AI driven. And that is how we report with clients now, and they love it. It's real time reporting. I run all of our research reports because that's an old love of mine back from my early days. And so I run a lot of our marketing stuff, and that's fun. Those are the things I do that's kind of more doer role, but a lot of times I'm brought in at the tail end of sales processes. I'm brought in. I hired a sales director of salesperson. That's another thing that I did for myself, which has made
Oh,
things go much faster. I used to do all the sales. When I stopped doing all the client stuff, I did all the sales, and now I don't do all the sales. So it just is. You just got to keep pushing yourself to grow bigger. And what I'm really focused on now is being the coach's coach, because I've got some
yeah.
really great senior talent and I'm wanting to build them to where they can lead. At some point, I do need to retire.
That's it. One piece of advice to give to other business owners, if you had one piece of advice, what would that be?
Don't wait. Just apply to almost everything. Don't wait to get rid of somebody that you have a snagging feeling is wrong. Don't wait to hire somebody or hire a position. Don't wait to start looking for a position that you think you might need. Don't convince yourself you can do it. You're tough. Um, don't wait.
That's
Don't wait to get the data that you need to run your business and make sure you're compliant with industry standards. Don't wait.
that's awesome. Just do it,
Just do
as
it.
Nike would say.
I know. It's like I invented that.
Thank you very much for your time. If people want to get in contact with you, is it LinkedIn, website? What's the best way to
Yeah.
find
Well,
you?
our website is pretty easy. It's tenfold, 10fold.com. And I'm Susan at tenfold.com. So pretty easy.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into The Growth Equation. If you've enjoyed the show, hit that subscribe button and leave a review. It helps us big time. Catch you next time. And if you want more, head over to evolvetogrow.com.au for show notes and exclusive content.